So let me know if you can hear me. Let me play with my sound here a little bit. It's been a tough week for audio on my Mac. Anybody else out there have had issues with their Mac this week? I did the recent upgrade and my audio has kind of been off. So if you are on live, drop a one in the comments if you can actually hear me. I would appreciate that. I don't want to do the entire live on mute, what have you. I said I've just been having a lot of issues today with sound. So I can see that I'm live there up in the corner. So that is good. I might have to go on one of the streaming sites, one of the sites I'm streaming to, just to see if I can unmute myself and see whether or not I can hear myself. Because I'm not getting any sound at all on this end. So again, let's see here. Oh, there we go. I'm good. I heard the sound. Okay, so I got someone out there that says, let's see. Comment, Cynthia. Thank you, Cynthia. I appreciate that because it was all solid on my end. So I didn't hear a thing. I did not hear one thing. Thanks for the feedback, Cynthia. I do appreciate it. So if this is your first time, I'm Dr. Twanna Carter, and as a career coach, I work with stressed, busy women executives who are plagued by imposter syndrome, as well as self-criticism and doubt. I work with them to alleviate their stress so that they can find peace of mind and fully focus on excelling in their careers. So if you're here tonight and it's your first time, this is actually the third live in the series. I'm doing a series of videos on the 5 types of imposter syndrome. So if you have missed the first one, you can actually catch the replays on my YouTube channel. And I'm going to drop the link. Let's see. I need to, let's see, it's just not letting me copy here because it wants me to correct a spacing mistake there. Gotta love it, right? So I'm going to drop this in the comments. Okay, can't post in some places. So I'll go around and make sure these are posted so you can catch the video. So this is a third in the series. And today is a natural genius imposter, the natural genius perfection imposter, right? Type of imposter syndrome. You know, and it's all about, for this is important because it's undermining yourself. It makes you undermine yourself. So we're going to talk about how that happens and most importantly, how you can get over that. It's very, very important to understand that, right? And so the other two, again, you can catch that at my YouTube channel. And for some reason, it's not letting me post, but that's not a problem because I can post individually. Gotta love technology, right? And you can catch the first one there. There's perfectionist type that I've already talked about, and then there's a superwoman that I talked about last week. Okay, so you definitely can catch those, catch the replays as well if you are interested in reading the articles. Because I don't know about you, but sometimes I just like to read it for myself. I really do. I was like, okay, I like to watch the video and all that, but sometimes when I'm going back and thinking and really doing the introspection and seeing what I need to pull out and what I need to do, I just actually like to read the article, right? And so you can actually read the articles on medium.com. Okay. So it's 2 different ways you can go back and catch up on this because I won't go over everything that I've gone over in the first 2 videos or the first 2 articles, but they are there for you. Okay. And if you go to the YouTube channel, be sure to follow me and click the little button to subscribe. And once you do that, you'll always get notified as soon as I drop a new video. I do this every Wednesday night at this same time. And as well, if you go to Medium and read the articles on the series that I have, be sure to follow me because you can also subscribe on medium.com on Dr. Twanna Carter. And then you'll also get notification every time that I drop an article on there. And there's lots of good articles out there, great content. Right. So today, again, I'm here to talk about the natural genius perfection type of imposter syndrome. Right. And so if you're like me, you're probably going, well, isn't that a contradiction? Because if I'm a genius, why in the world would I feel like an imposter? You know? And that question kind of plagued me for years because so many people told me I was smart. And because of imposter syndrome, I didn't believe it. A lot of folks told me that, but I never actually believed it. I now have a PhD, but at the time I was like, oh no, I can't get a master's degree. That's just for smart people. That's what intelligent, smart people do. So I can't do that. And for a number of years, for over 17 years, I didn't work on a master's degree because I wasn't intelligent enough. Definitely imposter syndrome. And of course, I was just embarrassed to ask, you know, and that often happens when people are embarrassed. Anybody out there um, know that you've experienced imposter syndrome at some point and you're just kind of embarrassed. You just don't really want to talk about it. You don't really want to ask folks. Sometimes it hits like that, right? So that's how I was, right? And the thing is in reality, imposter syndrome is very common. No matter how much success you achieve, you know, many people, may praise your talents and your abilities, right? But we're still plagued by doubts, right? We're still plagued by doubts of whether, like, maybe I don't deserve it. Are they just being nice to me to be nice to me? Are they lying to me, right? And again, that is all known as imposter syndrome. And again, it's a phrase that was coined about 1978 by doctors Pauline Clance and Suzanne Imes. Okay, when they did the research, what they noticed was that many high achieving women felt like frauds, no matter how much education they had or how high the position was. They just felt like a fraud, and they seemed unable to like internalize their accomplishments, and sometimes they were waiting for other people to say, give them a compliment or say like, that was really good. But oftentimes, even if they got that, they're like, no, no, that's not true. I don't deserve this. At some point, somebody's going to walk in the door and understand, point and say, fraud. I don't belong here, right? So they're just unable to, again, internalize their own success. And the good news is does it have to be this way? And of course, no one has to feel like this forever, right? And so you just might be thinking, like, what is the link between imposter syndrome, being a genius, and perfectionism? Okay, because we all know that perfectionism can be detrimental to us. Now, those of us who have it, I'm a recovering, I call myself recovering. You just feel like you can't ever get it just right. But if you can get it perfect, then people will look at you and say, yes, she belongs. Yes, she's earned that position. Yes, right? The thing is, you can't get close enough to perfection. And then that's where the problem comes in, right? Because those feelings of not being good enough, not being able to reach perfection, cause feelings of inadequacy. Right? And those feelings of inadequacy can have a paralyzing effect on your happiness and on your progression in your career, right? And it also keeps you from feeling like you actually belong or you deserve your success because you just feel inadequate. Like, nah, they're lying. Cynthia says, I never wanted to accept the term imposter syndrome and chalked it up to a fad phrase, the perfect way to avoid the issue. Yes, that part, Cynthia. Exactly. Because I actually hear people going, "Oh, everybody's got it now. It's just a phase of the past. You don't have to claim it." It's not that you're claiming anything. This is about the awareness of it, of what is happening when you're sitting alone. Especially for people in the C-suite. They say leadership is lonely. You get so far up, and it's a very lonely place to be. And if you get to this lonely place and your head is filled with, you know, somebody's going to come in here and figure out you're a fraud. You don't belong this. You're not working hard enough. You just got lucky. You don't deserve to be here. How much more lonely is it to be in these leadership positions and all the while have you doubting your own self, right? So it's not just a phrase. It's been around forever. And again, it does affect women more, right, than men. And although men and women can actually have it, and it does have a tendency to affect people of color, right? And that has, to do with the fact that some environments are not welcoming of women. They're just not. We're getting better with tech, we're getting better with science, but we have STEM and we have this acronym because at one point it wasn't really welcoming to women. And so you can talk to the women, the first few women to break those barriers in STEM, ask them how it felt. Ask them how it felt to be there. And as a matter of fact, if any of you are listening to this live and you were like the first person in your organization to be a software engineer or any other tech fields, how did that feel? Did everybody, that all the guys welcoming with open arms? Yes, she's here. She deserves to be here. I'm happy she's here. Or did it feel like some days that you were not welcome and that you felt like an imposter, like I don't belong here, I don't fit in, right? And I guarantee you there will be people who will say exactly that. I felt like it didn't fit in. I felt like an imposter. So some of the imposter syndrome is us, right? But some of it is the environment that we find ourselves in. And when that environment is unwelcoming and we feel that unwelcomeness, we'll often attribute it to ourselves rather than saying, this environment is not welcoming to me, it's hostile to me. That's why I don't fit in. Most of the time, we turn all that back on ourselves and say, I don't belong here. I must not be good enough. I don't know enough. I'm not smart enough. My background is not this. We'll blame ourselves for what an environment is doing or what environment situation the environment is actually creating for us, right? And so again, you know, the imposter syndrome, what it does is it prevents you from really maximizing your potential, and reaching your goals is harder, right? Or enjoying and truly being happy with who you are is more difficult if you got that doubt. The most important place on your body is that space between, the two ears, the brain, because that's where so much of the doubt and the comments of I'm not good enough, I'm not this, I'm not this, I'm not that, right? And so we're gonna just do a quick review. So who does imposter syndrome affect? I've said it before just a few moments ago. Anybody can have it, from students to CEOs. It's worldwide. 70%, over 70% of the people in the United States have it. Over 77% of folks in the UK. Worldwide, it's thought about 70% of people are affected by the imposter syndrome, right? And I told you before that women can be affected by this. There's just not enough people in the C-suite, and we're getting by degrees better. But again, that environment that I talked about, that environment feels unwelcoming, and we turn it back on ourselves rather than calling it for what it is. The environment is unwelcoming, right? And also, people who have really high expectations of themselves can really struggle with this type of imposter syndrome. You know, you kind of putting on yourself. I know as a black female raised in the United States, I was always told I had to be 2 to 3 times better than my white compatriots to be thought of as normal. Right, 2 to 3 times better. That meant I had to study harder, study longer, go more in depth for every single thing I did. That's a lot of extra expectations put on me, right? And if I'm groomed that I have to be or do 2 to 3 times as much, that means that when I sit in the room, I don't feel like, at the time, I didn't feel like I belonged. I wasn't as good as everybody else. Like, have I done twice as much? Have I done 3 times as much? And that affected, it led to or fed into the imposter syndrome, right? So thankfully, with some coaching and some therapy, I'm not there anymore, but it took a while to get here. But the thing is, you can get there. where you're not affected by the ways that you're raised. You're not affected by those limiting beliefs. Okay. And some famous names of who said they've been, affected by the imposter syndrome: Oprah Winfrey, Tina Fey, Jennifer Lawrence, right? Toni Morrison, Maya Angelou. A lot of folks said they have been affected by imposter syndrome. I was recently looking at Shaka Khan, who was one of my favorite, all-time favorite rhythm and blues singer, was on the Jennifer Hudson show and was saying that she had a very, very difficult time singing the song "I Am Every Woman." And she said, I think she was like maybe 24 or 5 or something about that when they gave her the song, and she said she was sitting in the studio, she had problems singing the song because she had imposter syndrome. She didn't feel like, I'm not every woman. I don't have a right to sing the song. Right? So anybody, again, can be affected by imposter syndrome. And then we talk about the signs. You feel like a fraud. Sometimes you feel you're overqualified for the job. Sometimes you feel you're not good enough for the job. You feel like you don't belong in the room when you sit around and look at everybody else. I don't belong here. I don't fit here. Right? And sometimes you're just way too hard on yourself. Your self-criticism can, again, lead to feelings of inadequacy and self-doubt. Right? And so, natural genius, perfection, imposter syndrome, just a whole mouthful to say that. What is it? All right. So I'm going to own up to this one right here. I suffered from this for a minute. So when you have the natural genius, perfectionist type imposter syndrome, you think that, or you feel that you have to be perfect. And that the first time you attempt a project, whatever you do, the first time you do it, it should be extraordinarily successful on the first try out of the gate. It should be perfect, extraordinarily successful the first time I try something, task, job, whatever it is, should be perfect right there on the spot. One and done. And then when that doesn't happen, then you get into self-recriminations. Then you get into the self-doubt. See, I know I didn't belong here because this didn't work out. And I see a lot of young women as well affected by this. This need to be perfect the first time. Like, this should come to me naturally. All I had to do is one time and I nailed it. I got it right. And then everybody will look at me and say, yes, she belongs here. Right? So that's what this type of imposter syndrome is. Okay. And then part of it is when you're perfect, you're trying to do everything perfect so people accept you. And then it points to some self-esteem issues as well. And it sets you up for failure because nobody's perfect. You can't do every single thing perfect the first time you do it. It's not possible. So you set this impossible standard that you can reach and nobody else. And then it's also problematic because if you have that type of imposter syndrome and you're supervising people, you expect for them to get it perfect on the first time out of the gate and not make mistakes. And that's an unfair expectation of your direct reports as well. Right? And so how do you overcome it? The first thing is understand, right? Because you don't stop seeking success. So that's not what we're talking about. It is about accepting that stuff is not going to happen overnight. We're not going to be perfect overnight. We're not necessarily going to be perfect every single time the first time we do it. Granted, there are some things you're going to do on the first time out of the gate and nailed it, like, yes. Then there are going to be some things that you do, like you got to do it over, come back, do it over and over. It's important to not look at it as that you fail. Look at that as feedback. We talk about neuro linguistic programming, NLP. It's not failure, it's feedback. When you get something that comes back, there's your chance to do it right, change the positions, change the direction. That's feedback that is useful for you. All right. Those two things are very important. Again, understanding that you don't stop success, but first you got to understand that there's no perfection out of the gate. And failure is feedback. It tells you how to go back and redo, do over, add some more to it, whatever it is you want to call it. Right? So why does it matter? And why are we all this talking about imposter syndrome? Is because it can block you from reaching your highest potential, right? Your highest potential. We already are dealing with perfectionism. We're upset about it, but you've got this now imposter syndrome thing that it kind of pulls back. Anxiety uses a lot of energy, and trying to be perfect creates a lot of anxiety, which saps your energy. Imagine that if you got rid of the imposter syndrome, you reclaim that energy. Now you can put that energy to, performing at your peak performance rather than wasting it being nervous, doubting yourself, criticizing yourself, calling yourself a failure, saying, I don't fit in, I don't belong here. And my thing was, nobody likes me. That was a whole big piece of my imposter syndrome, too, right? So it is all about understanding how you feel about yourself. Because when you don't feel you belong, you question your identity, you question your worth as a person, you question your self value, right? And then when you don't perform perfectly, because nobody can, it sets in doubt, and it's like a vicious circle. Because yeah, see, I knew I didn't belong here because I can't do this perfectly, and I don't belong here, and I'm not good enough, I'm not smart enough, I'm not pretty enough, I'm not this, and it just sets you on the cycle that you need to step off so you can move forward, right? Reclaim that energy. Definitely reclaim that energy. Okay. So if it sounds like this is you, this is your particular one, I kind of laugh because out of the five, at some point in my career, I've actually had three of the five types. I struggle with them in my 20s and 30s and part of my 40s. I really didn't break free until I was headed toward mid 40s. And I got to tell you, it's very empowering to finally break free. Right. So a couple of things that is important for you to is it's important for you to understand where it comes from. Right. The root of your imposter syndrome can be in childhood sometimes. It depends on how you were treated by your family. It may also depend on how you were treated when you went to school, where you pointed out where other kids treated a certain way, you were not, or you were treated a certain way and they were not. It can come from there, right? It can come from just, feeling like, you know, I don't have the best of, I don't have money. And that was the big thing for me because I grew up poor, right? Now, yes, my dad was in the military, but we grew up in poverty. So I always felt that because I didn't grow up with money, I was never as good as the people who did grow up with money. It took me a while to work my way through that one. I started learning how to set realistic expectations based on my value of myself. And I don't let people, I no longer let folks tell me what my value is. And it's one of the things I hammer on when I coach my ladies because they'll come in and we talk and I realize they're letting someone else set their value, right? No, I don't coach my ladies to do that. Set your own value. You determine what it is, not someone else. A job doesn't determine what your value is. Your boss doesn't determine what your value is. Your family doesn't determine it. Your spouse doesn't determine it. Your significant other. No one determines that but you. And that's important, right? It's important to step two, know what you're capable of, because if you understand your own value, and I really hit hard on this in my coaching, I really do. You have to understand your own value to be to communicate that to a hiring manager, or whether you're hiring, one-on-one, doing a one-on-one interview or doing a group interview, which I always love group interviews for when I used to interview for jobs. I love group interviews. I don't know why, but love those, love those, love those. But you have to understand your own value or self-worth to walk into a meeting and stand confidently or sit confidently and then communicate that to somebody else. Because if you feel inadequate, you feel like an imposter, you feel like you don't belong, then those are the vibes that you're giving off when you're communicating. Those are the vibes you're actually giving off even while you're filling out the application. And that's why you don't go anywhere. You don't get the jobs that you want. You have to understand your value, right? So understand where it comes from, know what you're capable of. And then number three, build your mental fitness, right? Build that mental fitness. Building your mental fitness moves you out of feeling inadequate. And the other benefits of increased mental fitness is self-awareness. You know who you are. Your emotional intelligence goes up when you build your mental fitness. You have increased confidence, right? With the mental fitness program, you're able to identify your saboteurs. These are the ways that we think, those limited beliefs that set us up for self-sabotage. I'm not good enough, doubting myself, criticizing myself. Building your mental fitness puts you in a space, right, where you can quiet those voices, be aware of what's going on, do the exercise to quiet those voices, to quiet that inner critic that causes so much of the doubt and self-criticism and self-sabotage and those feelings of inadequacy. Okay. Now, if you'd like more information on how you can build your mental fitness, just comment with confidence below, and I'll send you some information on that. It is really the best way to go about learning yourselves, because you can identify all your saboteurs, right? I tell my ladies that once you identify your saboteur, when you have an inner critic voice talk to you, you literally can pick out which saboteur is talking, and you know what to do to quiet that saboteur voice so that you can move forward, right? Those who increase their mental fitness are able to spend more time in peak performance. They have increased peace of mind, as well as they have better and healthier relationships with those around them, family and coworkers. Okay, lots of benefits to improving your mental fitness so that you don't have to feel like you're at the mercy of the imposter syndrome. Right. So, in other words, imposter syndrome doesn't have to define your career, doesn't have to define you as who you are as a person. It doesn't have to define your career. Right. And so, yes, imposter syndrome can be a serious problem in your life if you don't address it. But, because why? It can create limiting beliefs, or it can proliferate limited beliefs you already have. We talked about building mental fitness is the way that you turn that around so that you can manage and stop letting that imposter syndrome influence your life, right? And so again, if you want to be successful in building that mental fitness, definitely drop confidence in the comments, and I will come back around to you so you can learn more about my 7-week intense mental fitness coaching program. Yes, 7 weeks, and you will get a handle on this. It's an amazing thing, right? So next week, make sure you come back. As they used to say, you tell my age here, same bad time, same bad place. I'll be talking about the soloist or the rugged individualist type of imposter syndrome, right? So if you are finding this entire series on imposter syndrome and the types of imposter syndrome, if you are finding this useful, drop yes in the comments for me, right? Let me know I'm going in the right direction. And if there is something else that you like for me to talk about that I haven't spoken about before, that's not out there on my YouTube channel, feel free to either drop it in the comments, or you can actually send me a message on YouTube, Facebook, or LinkedIn, or even Instagram, right? And I will do the research and bring you alive on that subject. So, for those of you who celebrate Thanksgiving, I want to say happy Thanksgiving. I also like to say thank you, thank you, thank you for being here, for participating, and for watching this. And for those of you that catch it on the replay, you are more than welcome to drop your comments, because I always circle back to answer those comments when they pop up. All right. So that's what I have for you today. Thanks for being here. And Cynthia, I appreciate the participation. Have a great break for those of us that get breaks. And for those of you that are working tomorrow, have a great day. Take care.